So I'm in a coaching conversation with a client of mine, and we realized that one thing that he's struggling with is these expectations that he's putting upon himself. And you might recognize yourself in this. You feel like you have to do a certain thing, be a certain way to be good enough, to receive love, to be worthy of whatever it is. For example, you might put the expectation on yourself that you go to the gym at least 4 times a week. You might put the expectation on yourself that you're able to pay your rent. You might put the expectation on yourself that, and this is one that I used to struggle with, you're a coach and therefore you have to be a certain way. It's like, oh, I'm a coach and therefore I have to get up at 8 a.m. I'm a coach and therefore I have to meditate every single day. It's these types of things, and they're happening unconsciously because you just feel like, oh, this is how I feel good about myself. This is how I like myself more if I do these things. And the truth here is that you'll like yourself even more when you stop doing all those things and stop having the expectation. And therefore, in this video, I want to introduce you to this concept and also guide you through an exercise which you can implement right away, like today, that will help you dissolve most of the expectations that you have. And I'm saying most instead of all because it's going to be most. This is a process. I don't have like a quick fix and then all your expectations disappear, but I do have a technique for you that will bring more awareness towards your expectations. And so slowly over time, you'll be able to dissolve them and just step into your fullest authentic way of being, which allows you to live in full alignment with who you're meant to be. One thing that I thought was interesting to understand about this concept is that you are putting limitations on yourself and your way of being by having these expectations. And that's what most people don't realize. Expectations are one of the most limiting things there are because they are basically saying, I'm only successful if, I'm only worthy if, I'm only good enough if. And then you create this box for yourself. It's like, I'm only successful if I get up at 6 a.m. I am in loving contact with all of my family members. I have no trouble paying my rent at the end of the month. I meditate every single day. I do yoga, all of this. And that's, you're putting those in that box. And then you're trying to put yourself in there so that you can define yourself as, oh, I'm successful now. And that's very limiting because that means that only if you are X, Y, or Z can you be A, B, and C. That's a very interesting thing to understand. And what's happening in your outer reality is that these expectations that you are putting on yourself will be mirrored by other people. Suddenly you'll start to notice that other people have expectations of you, which is interesting because nobody has expectations of you. We're living in a 360-degree hologram mirror of ourselves. And so that means that whenever you notice that somebody has an expectation of you, basically what that means is that you put an expectation on yourself and you're stepping in that role of trying to fulfill that expectation in this scenario. These people are just mirroring something. And therefore, it's very interesting to look at the interactions that you have with the people around you and see what are the expectations that they have of me and in what way do I expect myself to fulfill that expectation. Let's be honest, if somebody has an expectation of you that you really don't feel like fulfilling, then it's not a problem. Like it's like it doesn't exist. Like think about that. It doesn't exist then. This expectation can only exist if you're allowing yourself to take on the responsibility of fulfilling that expectation. Else it's just their expectation and it stays in their reality and it's got nothing to do with you. Now, what I want to help you achieve in this video is to gain conscious awareness of the expectations that you're putting on yourself so that they're not just unconscious behaviors and things that you do to try and be a certain way, but now they become choices. There's this thing that I've said before. It's like when you go to the gym because you actually just want to go to the gym, that's amazing, that's great. But most people go to the gym because they don't want to feel the feelings that they give themselves whenever they don't go to the gym. And so the only reason they go to the gym is because they don't want to accept that part of themselves that doesn't want to go to the gym. This is a very unhealthy dynamic because you're basically shunning a part of yourself up. You're not being kind to yourself. And so this healthy behavior of going to the gym is actually very unhealthy because it comes from this place of, I actually believe that I'm not good enough. And so I'm trying to prove the opposite to myself by going to the gym. And all you're doing is reinforcing the fact that you're not good enough. I had a client, and this is already 3 years ago. I was having a conversation with him and he told me very proudly that he'd gotten into affirmations. And he was like, I just stand in front of the mirror in the morning and I tell myself that I love myself. And I asked him, I was like, do you believe it? And he's like, no, but over time I'll start to believe it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then why are you doing it? And he's like, well, because I don't really love myself. And now that I'm affirming that in front of the mirror, it's just, it's going to get me to the point where I'll learn to love myself. Like, well, that's interesting because that means that every morning that you get up and you stand in front of the mirror and you tell yourself that you love yourself, you're actually doing that because you don't love yourself. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do you realize what you're doing? That means that every time you get up and stand in front of that mirror, You're doing that because you don't love yourself. And so you're affirming the fact that you're not loving yourself. And this is what most people do. And this really ties into that expectation, is that we put certain things on ourselves. We are expecting ourselves that we should love ourselves. Like we learn in this whole self-development thing that just love yourself, you're good enough, all of this. And then whenever we don't feel that way, we blame ourselves for that. And we're looking for all these techniques and ways to solve that. And some people do that through going to the gym. Other people do that by getting into relationships that they actually don't want to be in. Other people do that by becoming people pleasers. And other people, do that through affirmations or tarot readings or whatever, you name it. Right now, I want to give you an exercise that will help you to become aware of the expectations that you're putting on yourself. And with that, make them a choice instead of a response. And so what I'd like you to do is to grab a piece of paper and a pen. You don't have to do this right now, but you can. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down all of the expectations that you can think of. Every single expectation that you can put on yourself. They can be everything. We're going to filter them later on. But right now, I'm really talking about expecting yourself to brush your teeth twice a day. Expecting yourself to get up at a certain time. Expecting yourself to have dinner 3 times a day at least. Expecting yourself to be productive, for example. Expecting yourself to pay rent at the end of the month. Expecting yourself to drive safely when you're on the road. Really everywhere. Come up with a list of at least 50, if you really want to do a good job, 100 expectations that you're putting on yourself. And there's going to be a point, like this is going to work exponentially, right? At the beginning, you're going to be able to think about a lot of them. And then when you're around 30, 35, it's like, I don't know. And I'm really inviting you to keep on going, because that's when the real expectations come up, when you really have to think about them. They can be subtle expectations. Like I'm expecting myself to close the door every time I go outside. And when you've done that, when you've made this whole list, what I'd like you to do is to look at this list and to ask yourself, what happens if I don't meet this expectation? How would I feel about myself if I don't meet that expectation? And for me, there's a massive difference. For example, when I did the exercise, I, wrote down, I'm expecting myself to brush my teeth twice a day. And then I asked myself, what happens if I don't meet that expectation? What happens if how would I feel about myself then? And I was like, nothing really changes. I'm expecting of myself to, do that, but it's like, it's not really an expectation. It's just something that I do for the sake of doing it. It's like, I just brush my teeth and there's no or else. There just wasn't anything there. But for going to the gym, I'm expecting myself to go to the gym at least 4 times a week. I'm expecting myself to eat this amount of calories so I can gain more weight. Then I was like, I really have to do, like, if I don't meet that expectation, then, what's my purpose? What am I doing then? I have to do that because else I'm not doing a good job. I'm not worthy then. And it brought up these interesting feelings. And I was like, wow, this behavior is more in control of my self-worth than I am. This, going to the gym and eating an X amount of calories, is one of the things that I allow to determine my self-worth. It's like, if I do this, then I like myself. And if I don't do that, then I don't. And you'll see this a lot with people who are into meditation. You might have the expectation that you meditate every single day. And this is the reason I stopped meditating. It's because I felt that if I didn't meditate on a day, I would feel shitty about myself. And so I started to rely on my meditation. It was like, see, I can keep up a good habit. See, I can do this. And I would start to resent myself every time that I wasn't meditating. And I was relying on meditating. And so I stopped doing it for a while, and I just felt the feelings of not being good enough. I felt the feelings of being a spiritual life coach that doesn't meditate. I sat with that and it was uncomfortable. But right now, it's like, I'm fine. I don't have that expectation of myself. The reason that I'd love for you to do this exercise right now is because I'm gonna, give you a little bit of a secret. Because the truth is that the moment where your expectations aren't defining of your self-worth anymore, that's when they're no longer expectations. Then they become preferences. They become standards. And so I have the high standard of myself that I brush my teeth twice a week. I have the standard of myself that I pay rent at the end of each month. I have the standard that I go to the gym 5 days a week. It's no longer an expectation. It's just the way that I'd like to treat myself. And if I don't, then that's fine. It says nothing about me. It's just about preference. And the main difference here is that expectations are limiting. It's like saying, if I don't brush my teeth twice a day, that means I'm lazy. That means I'm disgusting. That means I can't live up to my own expectations. Versus when it's a standard or a preference, it's like, I brush my teeth twice a day because I like to, because I want to, because I deserve that. And that's the difference. Same thing with going to the gym. Do you go to the gym because it's a preference, because it's a standard, because it's empowering? It's like, I get to do that. Or do you go to the gym because you feel that if you don't go to the gym, you're lazy, you're a procrastinator, you have all these negative ideas about yourself? And so look at your list, and with every single thing that you wrote down, ask yourself whether it's an expectation or whether it's a preference. And the way that you find out whether it's an expectation or a preference is whether there's feelings that come up when you ask yourself, what happens if I don't meet this expectation? And with brushing my teeth, it's fine. It's like a preference. It's a standard I have. But when it went about the gym and eating the calories, I realized, oh, interesting. There's an oomph there. There's like a little feeling. There's something there. And then you just sit with that feeling, just see what comes up. And maybe nothing comes up, but then try and see like how you can play with this, because it's your reality, right? So for example, something I did is I told myself I was going to go to the gym that day, but then my day became so full of things. And I was like, it would give me a lot of peace if I wouldn't go to the gym today. And I noticed my brain being like, no, you can't do that. You'll be able to fit it in. Like, what's an hour? You just do a short session. And then I just let that voice be there. And then I didn't go to the gym. And it was like, this sounds like such a small thing, but this is massive, because I didn't force myself into it, because I was like, this certain behavior, I'm not going to let that determine the way that I look at myself. And so you're taking back your power from it. And therefore, I think that any expectation that you have is limiting. It's extremely limiting. And so do this exercise, try and see which ones, come up, and sit with the feelings of them. Actually go there, like just let it happen. Just not fulfill that expectation just once. See what happens. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? What are you actually afraid of? These are very interesting questions. And if this is an exercise that you like help with, that you want to expand upon, something that you might run into, something that you find difficult, you might run into some feelings that you actually really don't want to sit with, I'm available to have a chat with. So be sure to schedule a call in the link below. Also, if you thought this video was helpful, smash a like and enjoy.